Someday you will not be here. This is not a threat. It's not a prophecy. It's just the oldest fact there is. Every person who has ever lived has understood this, at some point quietly, usually alone, and then had to decide what to do with that knowledge. Most of us don't talk about it, but we act on it. We build things. We make things. We write things down. We want someone, somewhere, someday, to know that we were here. That impulse is 5,000 years old, and it has a civilization. Egypt. Before this episode is over, you're going to understand that every time you've wanted to leave something behind, anything, you were doing something the Egyptians invented. Ancient Egypt lasted 3,000 years. Think about what that means. The civilization that built the Great Pyramid in 2560 BC would have considered the fall of Rome ancient history. When Cleopatra ruled Egypt in 50 BC, the pyramids of Giza were already 2,500 years old. She was closer in time to the moon landing than she was to the people who built them, 3,000 years. We have had nothing like it since. But that's not what's strange. What's strange is why they built what they built. The Egyptians were terrified of one thing above all else. Not pain, not war, not famine, forgetting. In Egyptian belief, the soul, the ka, could only survive if the name survived. If your name was spoken aloud, if your image existed somewhere solid, if your story was carved into something that would outlast the people who loved you, you continued, not as a memory, as a presence, as something still real. But if your name disappeared, if the last person who remembered you died, if the last image of your face crumbled into dust, you died again. Completely. Finally, forever, they called it the second death, and it was worse than the first. So everything they built, every pyramid, every tomb, every temple wall covered in hieroglyphs, was an answer to that fear, a way of keeping the name alive. The Great Pyramid at Giza required an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2.5 and 15 tons, assembled over roughly 20 years. Mark Lehner, archaeologist at Harvard University and founder of Ancient Egypt Research Associates, has documented how a workforce of perhaps 20,000 people, fed, housed, paid in grain and beer, built the most enduring structure in human history. Not slaves, workers, people who were trying to keep a name alive. They built in stone because papyrus burns, because wood rots, because anything soft disappears. Stone doesn't, and so they carved into it. Names, titles, faces, stories, hieroglyphs covering every surface, not decoration, insurance against the second death. The hieroglyphic script was one of the first writing systems on Earth. When Egypt finally fell, absorbed into Rome, then into history, no one living could read it anymore. For 1,400 years, the entire record of what they built, who they were, what they believed, sat on the walls in silence. Then in 1799, French soldiers digging fortifications near the Egyptian town of Rosetta pulled a flat stone from the ground. It carried the same message in 3 scripts: hieroglyphic, demotic, and ancient Greek. In 1822, the French scholar Jean-François Champollion cracked the code. Egypt could speak again, after 1,400 years of silence. And the first thing it said was, "We were here." Here's the reframe. Jan Assmann, cultural theorist at the University of Heidelberg, has argued that Egypt invented what he calls cultural memory, the deliberate effort to preserve identity across generations through monuments, texts, images, and ritual. The idea that a civilization could make itself remembered on purpose, that the past doesn't have to disappear. You inherited that idea completely. Every book written to outlast the person who wrote it, every statue in a public square, every building named after someone who funded it, every photograph taken because the moment deserved to survive. Every time you've shared something you made and hoped it would last, you were doing Egyptian theology. Not metaphorically, structurally. The card doesn't require belief. It just requires the name. Think about the last time you put your name on something, signed something, made something, and wanted people to know it was yours. That wasn't vanity. That was 5,000 years of instinct. That was the second death. The thing you've been running from without ever knowing it had a name. The Great Pyramid is the only one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world still standing. Khufu built it for himself, a monument to a life that would otherwise vanish. Like every other life, he has been dead for 4,500 years. His name is still being said. Maybe that's all the permanence anyone ever gets. A name that outlasts the body. A second life borrowed from the people who remember. A stone that refuses to crumble while everything softer disappears around it. You've been building toward that your entire life. You just didn't know it had a 5,000-year-old name. Next episode, Greece. The civilization that didn't just want to be remembered. It wanted to be right.